Smackdown moving over to the USA Network, and Raw being demoted down to 3 hours and changing over to Netflix in a few months, and even NXT finding a brand new home in a couple of weeks, now seems as good a time as any to stop, smell the roses, and analyze the landscape of championships in the WWE. Because there are some championships right now that feel incredibly important, more important than they felt in years. However, I can't say the same thing for all of the championships right now in the WWE, because there are some that are in the basement in terms of prestige. So we're gonna look at every single championship reign, who's currently holding it, what kind of feuds they're in, and really give you an idea whether this championship is in a good place or not. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring that bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I am confident you're gonna fall in love with his YouTube channel, because we always upload daily wrestling content. All right, folks, let's jump into it. Let's start things off by talking about the WWE Women's Tag Team titles, a set of tag championships that is currently being held by the team of Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. In terms of importance, this is the most important that the tag titles have felt in a handful of years, and it's because they're currently in the hands of Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. Think about the tag titles over the last handful of years. They really don't get involved in meaningful storylines, and they sure as hell never sniff any WWE Premium Live event. But under Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, whether they're champions or not, the tag championships, and then by default the tag team division, actually get screen time. They get storylines, and they culminate in PLE matches. Think about when the Unholy Union was champion and they weren't in the feud with Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill for like that month and a half period. Those titles just were not getting the same tender love and care that they were when Bianca and Jade were in the picture for those titles as champions or as contenders. Here's the thing, I don't know how well you can scale the tag team division like this, because at some point or another, Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill are gonna have to go on their separate ways. That is just inevitable. And I fear that when they leave the division, that there isn't really gonna be a strong enough division to carry these tag titles and this division as a whole in the way that Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill have been over the last several months. So the tag titles are at an all-time high, in my opinion, in terms of importance. We've got Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill. Now we've got Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax potentially calling their shots for these tag titles. So we're getting like 4 of the most recognizable faces that are, again, single stars going after these titles. And that does help the screen time, that does help the prestige, but I don't know that this overall elevates the division in the long haul. So the tag titles are in a really good place. The division as a whole, the tag team division, is in a bit of thin ice right now, because I feel like if you pull one Jenga block away, that being Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, the whole division could just go crumbling down and just not feel as important as it is today. And then there's the men's side of the tag titles, which are just a completely different story right now. Let's look at the World Tag Team Championships, which are currently being held by the Judgment Day, Finn Balor and JD McDonough, over on Monday Night Raw. If you didn't know that they were the champions, frankly, I wouldn't freaking blame you, because half the time they're not wearing the titles, and they're rarely ever defending the championships as is. Luckily, on this upcoming episode of Monday Night Raw, we're getting a championship defense, and frankly, I hope that they lose the titles, because clearly there's no idea or vision as to what to do with the Judgment Day as tag champions. Sadly, I think that the tag championships were given to the Judgment Day to elevate Liv Morgan's storyline and her involvement within the Judgment Day, as she tried to fully bring in Dominic Mysterio into her web and completely remove Rhea Ripley from the whole equation that is Judgment Day. That mission is done. It's complete. So what are the titles still doing on JD McDonough and Finn Balor? We look at the feuds that are currently going on for these titles, and there are none. It's just a random match that was announced last week between the Judgment Day and the New Day. That's not a feud that was built up. The feud that's going on with the tag champs has to do with something not involving the tag team division at all. We have Finn Balor busy with Damian Priest, and then by proxy, JD McDonough is involved in that as well. So in my opinion, these tag titles arguably are at the lowest that they've ever been since they were minted after WrestleMania 40. These titles, they have nowhere to go but up, frankly, so that is a bit of optimism. But as it stands, as of the making of these videos, these titles are basically as good as doormats at the moment. Over on SmackDown, SmackDown, you can make some interesting arguments here. Let's look at the tag team championships that are currently being held by the Bloodline, specifically being held by the infamous Tonga Loa and Tama Tonga. One of the cool things about the Bloodline holding these tag championships is that they are embroiled in both a main event feud with Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, but then at the same time, unlike the Judgment Day, are being involved in storylines and feuds with tag teams. So this is a similar situation to the Judgment Day in that a faction that's in a main event scene, in a main event storyline is holding them, but unlike the Judgment Day, at the very least, they're being included in the actual tag team division, and that's great. By proxy, this is helping the tag team division because the tag team division gets to cross paths with somebody that's always in the main event picture like Solo Sikoa and now Jacob Fatu. We even saw the Bloodline invade NXT to take out the Street Profits and take out the NXT tag champions over there. So they're doing a really good job of keeping you aware and reminding you that although this is the Bloodline, they're still the freaking tag champions. I don't know how much you can scale the tag team division off of this right now, but at least what they're doing is that they're elevating the tag team division as the Bloodline progresses as champions, so that when they maybe inevitably lose it to DIY or the Street Profits, it'll feel like a really big deal and ultimately elevate the team that dethrones the Bloodline. And that's something that you cannot say about the New Day should they be the ones to dethrone the Judgment Day. So overall, I think they're doing a really good job of mixing main event and tag team storylines so that the tag team division doesn't go completely by the wayside and become a barren desert with nothing to do like over on Monday Night Raw. So I think that overall these tag titles are in pretty good hands and doing pretty well overall. The NXT Tag Team Championships might be currently being held, and don't call me crazy here, by the greatest NXT tag team champions of all time. I know. I know you guys want to throw FTR, DIY, Authors of Pain in there, but like we got to start having the conversation that Fraxium might just be the greatest set of tag champions that NXT has ever seen. The tag team championships are involved in continuous storylines throughout Tuesday nights on NXT. They appear on PLEs all of the time. We have main roster members coming down to fight for it like the Street Profits just did. We also had the Bloodline appear and help elevate the tag team champions from NXT by involving themselves in a potential storyline with them. So right now, the NXT tag team championships are maybe as high as they've been since the peak of NXT Black and Gold, when the NXT tag team division was maybe the best thing going in all of professional wrestling across the planet at the time. I don't think that it's quite there, but this is, since the end of NXT Black and Gold, this is the most prestigious that the tag team division and the NXT tag titles have felt. And a lot of that is due because of the work of Fraxium, which is Nathan Frazier and Axiom. They've been genuinely fantastic as champions. Maybe the only thing, if you want to nitpick, is that the titles have been ping-ponging around different tag teams, and it just keeps coming back to Nathan Frazier and Axiom. Like, the championships have changed hands quite a few times this year, but albeit it's still making for really entertaining storylines in television, so I'm having a hard time really using that as a all-around negative. So overall, NXT tag team division, we're looking good. Please don't change anything. Now let's look at the NXT North American Championship, a championship that is currently being held by the champion Kalani Jordan. This championship hasn't really gotten off the ground running as fast as the men's North American title did back in NXT Black and Gold. This is a bit of a slower burn. There have already been a handful of feuds. We've had her defend against Sol Ruca in what I think could be one of the best women's matches of the year. She's currently embroiled in a feud with Wendy Chu, so there are storylines and it is getting screen time pretty much every single week. But out of all of the championship feuds going on in NXT, I do feel that overall the NXT Women's North American Championship is getting the lesser of the feuds and not as good as storylines. The champion, Kalani Jordan, is fantastic in the ring. Like, I truly think that she's great and she's getting so much better every single week, but I do feel like she isn't the strongest storyteller outside of the ring, on the mic, or in backstage segments. And I do think that she is improving there, but this weakness in storytelling from Kalani Jordan's side is making it difficult for me and other fans to to really get super invested in the feuds for this specific championship. And having a difficult time getting invested in these feuds means that you tend to have a more difficult time getting excited for the matches that might be coming up, like JC Jane versus Kalani Jordan. So there's a lot of improvement here, but there's a lot of positives to talk about as well. So it's not as if, again, it's not as bad as the Raw side tag team division. It's not that bad. Let's talk about the NXT North American Championship, a championship that isn't being held. It's just being locked down by Obafemi at this point. It's funny. I actually feel like Obafemi is so damn dominant that no one in the division is a believable threat to beat him. Like, absolutely no one comes to mind where I'm like, yeah, the second that guy gets an opportunity, that guy's gonna dethrone Obafemi. And I don't know if that's good or bad for the division. At some point, there's gonna have to be a good underdog story that comes up in this division that makes me believe that this smaller person, somebody that just isn't as physically dominant as Obafemi, might actually have a chance to dethrone him. And I say that it has to be an underdog story because I don't see Obafemi ever being equally matched or an underdog himself. We'll have to see. NXT is debuting on the CW network, and I'm sure that there's big plans for Obafemi. I think it'd be super cool if he was one of the pillars of the NXTNA movement that's going on. I'd love to see him go up against Moose, against Josh Alexander. I think that there are so many amazing matches available for Obafemi across the TNA multiverse. But the division is on lock. It's healthy. It's just, it might be so on lock that none of the feuds right now feel like anything aside from just Obafemi going through the motions and beating the shit out of people. We still have this feud going on with the family, but no one in the family, not even the Don himself, feels like a threat to Obafemi in any capacity. I think that it has to be a brand new face, somebody that we just don't even really know about as a potential threat to Obafemi to actually come in and beat Obafemi. But yeah, division is strong, champion is strong. We just need more believable contenders is all I'm trying to say. The United States Championship is currently being held by LA Knight. Yeah. And although it's still only in its early stages of its championship run under the LA Knight banner, it's still already a significant improvement over what we had with Logan Paul. He's already matched the amount of championship defenses that Logan Paul had in an entire 200 plus days as champion. And the championship is in every single episode of Friday Night SmackDown. Even if LA Knight doesn't get an extended promo segment or doesn't get a match, WWE is making its efforts to make sure that at some point or another, albeit for a long time or a short time, you get to see LA Knight as the champion at one point or another. So LA Knight as a champion is fantastic. The WWE is treating the championship fantastic. The only thing of concern really is the division. I don't think that it goes deeper right now than Andrade and Carmelo, albeit those are two awesome figureheads to have under LA Knight anchoring the division. It's still pretty thin, but it is a division, albeit of three guys, it seems right now, LA Knight, Andrade, and Carmelo Hayes, that are putting on fantastic stories, great promos, and between Carmelo and Andrade, amazing matches. I do believe that LA Knight is going to hold for a while and that the division will continue to grow alongside LA Knight's reign, but all in all, there is nothing but positives to talk about the United States Championship title and the division and the reign. There's nothing but possible future positive outcomes at this point. That's the nice thing about following up but not so great championship reign, because now whatever you do, so long as you actually get to do something, is going to be seen in a positive light by fans. Now let's talk about the Intercontinental Championship, a championship that is currently being held by Braun Breaker. This is a similar situation that the United States Championship title and division is in, but also a very different one. It's similar because we have a brand new champion trying to establish himself. But it's also entirely different because unlike the United States Championship, the Intercontinental Championship now has a proper lineage of good champions that have come before Braun Breaker in Gunther and Sami Zayn. So unlike LA Knight, Braun Breaker actually has some tough acts to follow here as the Intercontinental Champion. And we've already seen him defend the championship against Sami Zayn, a very notable name who's now going after the World Heavyweight Championship. But now we see the WWE treating the Intercontinental Championship as a proto main event type of title, as they had this tournament that culminated in that main event of Monday Night Raw in that awesome Fatal 4-Way. And along the way, we had Bron Breakker having micro feuds and micro moments with people that are in this tournament. So overall, I feel like the division is incredibly healthy, especially when you look at all of the names that were in that tournament. I do feel, though, however, that right now, none of the competitors going after Bron Breakker are a threat, because I do feel like Bron Breakker is going to be given a really dominant reign, and he's so far been seen as a really dominant champion. And because we're early on in the reign, these feuds and these matches that he's having for the title, although good and although built well, are sort of spoiled by the fact that we know that Bron Breakker is going to win. But that's not a fault of the championship or Bron Breakker. That's just kind of natural because we're in an early dominant championship reign. So I'm not going to hold it back because of that or dock any sort of points here. Intercontinental Championship continues to be the healthiest mid-card championship in the WWE, as it's been for quite a while, ever since Gunther really elevated this championship with his historic record reign. The NXT Women's Championship right now is currently being held by the champion Roxanne Perez. And Roxanne Perez has truly helped elevate this division and this title in the wake of not having a lot of really credible opponents up until now. Because although Roxanne Perez was having amazing matches and defending her championship time after time after time after time, it was never against anybody that we truly believed had a chance against Roxanne Perez. But they still made the most out of it because the people that she was going up against got more screen time. They got to have more promo time, which is what you want out of an NXT feud. And Roxanne Perez got to build up her resume with victory after victory after victory, which was incredibly important because just in the blink of an eye, the NXT women's division in terms of the main event is about to become like ridiculously stacked with the addition of the recently added Julia, who has a championship match, Stephanie Vaquer, and Delta. So shout out to Roxanne Perez for holding down the division until NXT could replenish its talent pool. The championship is in a great position. The outlook is incredibly positive with the new names that are about to be added to the women's division. Overall, like, I have to praise Roxanne Perez for her amazing work as a champion recently. The WWE Women's World Championship. Okay, this is an interesting one because the current champion is Liv Morgan. And this is an interesting dichotomy because we went from Rhea Ripley, a champion that was dominant, that was a fighting champion, to Becky Lynch, a fighting champion as well, a Hall of Famer, to Liv Morgan, somebody who is starting to prove herself as a main event caliber talent, but is an entirely different type of champion in that she's the Weasley Coward champion that runs away whenever a major fight comes afoot. And I do believe that that works entirely well with the character of Liv Morgan. But it is a bit of a mental reset that we have to go from seeing a dominant fighting champion to a champion that's on the run all the time. But that's how heels typically are supposed to be. The feud that the championship is in is obviously a main event caliber feud. But if you were to actually extrapolate and look a little bit further out beyond Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley, I think that you're going to be entirely underwhelmed as to what the division looks like on Monday Night Raw. Any of the other women that could be viable potential candidates to go up against either champion Rhea Ripley or Liv Morgan for this championship are either in a tag team right now like Io Sky, are embroiled in some garbage feud with the PFC like Lyra Valkyria and Selena Vega, or they're out altogether like a Raquel Rodriguez. But like I said, the storyline and the two people that are involved for this storyline and the fact that it's a main event feud, the fact that it's getting PLE time after time after time, the fact that it can open a show, end a show, like that to me screams a healthy feud in a healthy championship. I just don't necessarily think that right now it's the healthiest division. But maybe it doesn't have to be the healthiest division at the moment because I do think that this feud is going to run for several months. So we don't necessarily need to look outward yet because this is going to go on for a long time. It's actually why I think Friday Night Smackdown is doing this thing where whoever gets pinned in this women's tag team match between Tiffany Stratton, Nia Jax versus Bayley and Naomi, whoever gets pinned has to leave SmackDown to go over to Monday Night Raw because Monday Night Raw kind of needs these names. The WWE Women's Championship is kind of in a role reversal from the Women's World Championship on Monday Night Raw because the current champion is Nia Jax. And it's in a role reversal because it doesn't have a fantastic feud like the women's side has over on Monday Night Raw with Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley, but it has a really strong and healthy division of sharks just swimming around this women's championship. You, of course, have Tiffany Stratton as Miss Money in the Bank. You have Bayley, Naomi's in the picture as well, and you know that we have the looming Charlotte Flair as well, and we had some great contenders that, albeit not necessarily dangerous, putting up great matches and great efforts like Michin did. So the weaknesses of the other women's titles are actually the strengths of this one, and the weaknesses of this one are the strength of the other one. So I guess that's kind of a nice equivalent exchange balance between the two. But if I'm looking at the future outlook, I like the future outlook of this version of the women's side more than I do what's going on over on Monday Night Raw. The NXT Championship was in like a bit of a standstill for the last bit of the summer there because we knew what the end goal was going to be. The current champion is Ethan Page, and it was in a standstill because you could tell from a mile away was that the intention was for Trick Williams to likely win this championship back at a major moment, and that major moment is likely going to be when NXT debuts on the CW. So everything that happened between NXT Heatwave and CW just sort of felt like good filler. Good filler, I want to clarify. And it is good filler because it has been entertaining. We had Ethan Page go up against Joe Hendry. Like, what the think about that for a second, how insane that is. And the division has been surrounded this entire time by Trick Williams and, of course, Pete Dunne, who just put on a hell of a last man standing match on NXT. But it did go the direction that we all expected, which was Ethan Page versus Trick Williams again. I still think that the NXT main event scene is the weakest it's been in a really long time because that draft took away Ilya Dragunov, Carmelo Hayes, Dijak, Braun Breaker. Like, it took so many people out of that main event scene that it's still rebuilding. So albeit the championship is in a really important marquee feud right now between Trick Williams and Ethan Page, which helps make the championship feel, of course, incredibly special, I'm a little bit concerned as to the outlook over the next several months, either until NXT moves up people from the midcard to feel like genuine threats or brings in new names altogether, or maybe main roster people insert themselves into that championship picture like Pete Dunne did. But it's still the same concern that I had when I made this video several months ago, which is the main event scene is kind of sparse at the moment in the NXT men's side. The World Heavyweight Championship right now is currently being held down by the Ring General Gunther. So far, the World Heavyweight Championship has had a fantastic 2024 as it's had a handful of different champions and has shown the world that no, you don't need to have a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year long reign for it to feel special, because it felt special under Drew McIntyre for those 5 minutes. It felt special under Damian Priest, and it's absolutely feeling special right now, a month and a bit into the reign of Gunther. Right now, the championship, the champion, and the division is in a bit of a transitionary period, as I do believe the WWE is trying to remove any sort of doubt from Gunther's reign right off the bat by having him beat Randy Orton, the guy that he didn't actually beat properly at King of the Ring, and Sami Zayn, the last guy that properly beat him at WrestleMania 40. I think that once the Sami Zayn feud is done, then the real championship reign is going to begin. That's when Gunther is going to go up against the CM Punks of the world, the Drew McIntyres of the world, the returning Seth Rollins. That's when I think the championship reign will really ramp up. So that means that the future outlook of feuds and storylines for this championship and contenders looks fantastic. And on top of that, not only does the future outlook look fantastic, but you have a believable champion, and a believable champion that puts on match of the night contender time after time after time. So this goes back to my initial point. The World Heavyweight Championship is having the best year imaginable at the moment. And quickly reminding us that we can actually go back to the era of 3, 5, 6 month championship reigns without diluting the importance of a championship reign altogether. And that brings us to the WWE Undisputed Championship that is currently being held by the champion, Cody Rhodes. A champion that I don't think is in danger of losing this championship anytime soon, at the very least from what I can see. It's interesting because we have seen that there is a division that is blossoming around the main event scene that that Cody Rhodes is the figurehead of. We've seen him go up against AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, Logan Paul, Solo Sikoa. So clearly there are names to fill up the backlog and increase Cody Rhodes' resume as champion. The problem is that because of Cody Rhodes' story being so intertwined with the bloodline, it means that pretty much everything aside from Roman Reigns, The Rock, and I'll add Randy Orton to this, doesn't feel like a genuine threat to Cody Rhodes. It feels like a really entertaining filler arc of anime when he goes up against people like Kevin Owens. But this is still clearly the marquee championship, the marquee division that will close night 2 of WrestleMania. And if it's still in that position where it's still the anchor of what WrestleMania will be built around, it still means that it's incredibly prestigious. We talked about the difficulty of following up an incredibly historic reign, and unfortunately, Cody Rhodes is having to do that because he's not being compared to anyone else aside from Roman Reigns' 1,300 plus day reign. And when you're compared to that, the greatest reign of all time, it's easy why people could think that this reign is underwhelming. But when you look at the actual evidence, the matches that he's been having, the variety of different feuds that he's had, it's absolutely not an underwhelming championship reign. Simply put, you might just not like Cody Rhodes, and I feel like that's okay. You don't need to hide it by saying like he's not a good champion. Just say you don't like Cody, bro. But the championship is in a fine state. The champion's in a fine state. The future of it is still what WWE will be building its major shows around, which means that's okay. So it's in a great spot still. All right, folks, thanks so much for watching this video. We'll probably do this again in 4 months to see how things have changed. But for now, I'm done. Get out of here.